Hello everybody and welcome back to another video slash stream. Yay! I did take a couple days off, some of you might have noticed. I realized I hadn't taken a break since a while before the invitational. Figured I'd take a couple days off, kinda recoup and just do some other stuff. But I am back now. And something I've noticed for the entire patch, really, people are asking for a tier list. So, we can do something a bit different today, and we're actually going to make one. I don't normally do, like, resource type videos, but I was going to make a tier list anyways to help newer players kind of at least get an idea of what's good. And I figured having a recording of it so that people can watch back and hear my explanations as to why something's good or not might help as well. So, also, like, I think making a tier list too early on in a patch just ends up giving inaccurate information because a lot of strategies develop later on through the patch. But now that we've had the mid-season invitational, big tournaments, saw a lot of stuff, I think while this tier list won't be perfect, I think we do have a much better grasp of the meta than we did a few weeks ago. And I can give at least a somewhat accurate depiction of the stuff that's good nowadays. But of course, like, there's going to be some amount of bias just because I think some things are better than other players or worse and so on. And so, I mean, people are going to be correcting me throughout this whole thing, I'm sure, either in chat or just like screaming at their screen, like, why'd you put this in whatever tier? But yeah. So I'm going to go through and just do every full evolution down the list here. I will not do, like, within the tier rankings. It's like if I put something in B tier and then there's something like later on in B tier, like over here or something, that does not mean that Zalbian's any worse than Mimit in this case. It just, they're all in B tier. Hello, Starla, welcome. So, I think that's enough explanation. If I forget something, I'll just explain it later on. Gazuma S at Riot. Gazuma will be higher than it's probably been in, like, the last, like, 4 or 5 so patches. But I don't think it'll be S. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's going to be anything in S tier. I might put some stuff in S just so I don't have to create an F tier. Also, I realize the saying, luckily A, B, C, and D sound mostly different, but it might end up sounding the same. But you can see on screen here. Alright, but yes, the first Tem in the Tempedia is Mimit. Ladder's not safe. What happened on ladder? Built a new fire team? I haven't had a whole lot of inspiration for new teams. That's another reason why I'm doing this. I want to make like a late Torment, Venom Spread, Bully team, like all of them together, and just see how it goes, but that's the only inspiration I have. Thought about making a Doom team, but Doom's so strong now, and there's even less options than before, it kind of feels bad. Madness buff Goulder, I think that's trash, honestly. I feel bad that Goulder got reworked like that. Okay, but yes, people are here for tier lists, or at least the ones watching the video are. I will get distracted with chat, sorry guys. If you want to, you could just skip to the end and check out the completed tier list as well. Yeah, I was just using an example in Mimit, I did B tier just for the example. But yes, Mimit will be in A tier. So the main reason for this is because of striking Mimit, but landing transmog is also very strong. But striking Mimit has proved to be extremely strong. Borderline S tier, but I think it's just going to be A because it has flaws. So DNA extraction is now ultra priority. On the turn when you transform with striking Mimit, you actually take half damage, just straight up half damage from any attacks. You additionally get +2 speed, so you'll outspeed, and you can steal anything on the board. So if you're, it's really hard to draft against your own Tems in pick ban. Hello, Queen. Welcome. So yes, and most of the time people are building striking transmog Mim. It's bulky, but it's also very strong as attempt to double anything with, like double Nature Quaish, double Babua for synergy strategies. Put Mental Quaish high and I'll interview you for the is it the Temtem times or whatever? I will not be going through the individual Chromion and Quaish types. That would take way too long. I have a feeling this is already going to take a long time. Leave away a lot of speed invest and put that into something else. Yeah, for sure. Mim is just very flexible, and buffed striking transmog is very strong. It's just one of the more difficult Tems to use. Alright, Zalbian. Super flexible Tem, extremely wide move pool. I think it was like last patch or 2 patches ago, it got a speed boost, so it's not super slow now. It has Electro Punch, so it can deal with Naga super well. But overall, its stats kind of middling. It's got mediocre special defensive stats, and it's not the fastest, but it enables a lot of Digicore teams. I would put this one in B tier. It also actually has good synergy with Mimit, because if you have 2 Zabians on the field with Electro Punch, it's very threatening. The Chromions are all, like, I would say Toxic Chromion and Electric Chromion are the best 2 right now. Toxic Chromion with Pigment Inverter hits a lot of types, a lot of things that are very strong against Digi teams, like crystals specifically. And Electric Chromion can go with Mimit's landing transmog, is super threatening with double Sinner Typer, enables Digiteam synergy with harmful microwaves, and just hits hard with T-strikes. But in general, the rest of them are kind of mediocre. I know Brutal Felix is experimenting with Wind Chromion, and you got good old Fire Chromion from Rezo teams. I guess I could place like the used Chromions somewhere. I'd place pretty much all of them in B. I'm just going to place these 2. They're very good with Digi-teams, but outside of Digi-teams it's pretty rough. Electric Chromion can be used as Pigment Inverter because of Electric's type interactivity, but it's more of a best of 1 strategy. Melee, Melee is still very strong, but since the harmful microwave synergy got switched, I think that Munko's just better. But you could just put a Melee probably in B as well. Maybe it'd be better just to put Digichromion in B. Just because this Digichromion just encompasses all Chromions. Just assume that they're in like low B tier essentially. Mogu. Mogu's one of my favorite Tems. Very bulky bruiser. After the defensive buffs and the stamina buffs it got, it's cool. Splitter is now a really viable ability. The problem is that it's a slow digital, so its type chart's very bad. So I can't put it in A, and it's definitely better than C. And we might end up with a lot of B tiers. Maybe I should almost add another tier in between. We'll see. I might end up changing that later. Platymus. Just one of the fast waters, but it also has a toxic type with it. I think it's the fastest Toxin Shower user, which is very threatening. I think this one goes in A tier. Its biggest weakness is that its best turn 1 toxic is Rotten Goo, which is kind of a mediocre or bad move. But at least it gets priority with electric types. But overall, I mean, having Aquatic Whirlwind and Toxin Shower is super good. Just the best sweatband user in the game. So, Lawali. Lawali got hit pretty hard with nerfs 2 patches ago and kind of got overtaken by Volphy as the primary nature type on teams. It's not bad by any means, but it more or less gets outclassed by everything Volphy wants to do. It's a wind type, so it wants to be in front of Toxics, but it's a nature type, so it's also weak to them, so it's kind of back and forth. It also lost synergy, or when Gus got nerfed, it also got hit pretty hard there. It can run allergic spread now that that's buffed, so it's decent. But it's just it doesn't have the stats that it used to. So that's turbo. That's true. I just feel like there's better turbo users out there. Could be wrong though. Tataru. Tataru lost Stone Ball. Shook and Tat do it better. Exactly. Here we are on Tataru. Because having a turbo user that's not wind type is a pretty nice advantage. Because the Temps that you're going to do Synergy Turbo with are going to be wind. After losing Stone Ball, Tataru did take a pretty big hit. Because one of Tataru's big advantages was having a lot of coverage options with Nox Bomb, Stone Ball, and just Major Slash. You were able to hit quite a few Temps. So you only got walled by, I think it was like Barnshee almost. It lost bulk too. I forget the exact changes. I don't think it's C tier. It's, I don't know, it almost might be. It's just kind of like a generic neutral bruiser now. It still has strategy with Rage and next to Shuin for with Guardian, but that's more or less a Shuin thing than a Tataru thing. Like Tataru alone, it has a really wide move pool, but most of those moves are really niche and don't have a lot of use. It's great. I mean, it still has. I feel like Tataru as a Tem is not good. It's just enabled by both Nutbar and Shuin to run through slower teams. So it could easily be B tier, but I'm gonna place it in C because I think that the Tem Tataru itself is kind of bad. But I guess it does have like turbo, as we mentioned just a bit ago, which is kind of an advantage. Yeah, attack and stam nerfs feels bad. Alright, Grunder. Super good toxic type because with thick skin it resists wind. It's the only toxic type that resists wind effectively. Has defib now, beef up, coverage moves with Clay Ball and Water Jet. I really like Garunder. I think it's super strong. It's got a really nice stat spread, one of the highest special defense stats in the game. I don't think it's quite A tier. I think it's going to be B tier. It's really easy to slot on bulky teams just because of its flexibility. And then with Paizo, just place it next to Earths. B tier is offensive. It has low defense, so it's not. I don't know. It's a slow Tem. It's enabled a lot by energy drink. Like I'm trying to be less biased about the gears, because like every time you see a Garunder, you're like, okay, this thing is thick skin and it has energy drink. But if besides energy drink, it's able to be controlled easily. Priority with Paizo doesn't particularly matter. Defib is a weaker electric move. You just I don't know. I think B is going to be a good spot for it. Well, if B gets too crowded, I'll probably move some stuff around, and that would be in the higher B tier. Next, we got Magmut. The biggest niche that Magmut has is that it completely walls Gialis. There are not a lot of Tems that could wall Gialis, and Gialis was running through the meta for a long time. But not only did Gialis get nerfed to the point where it is not nearly as good as it used to be, because it lost helicopter kick and stats over and over and over, but it also lost rage this patch, which is a slight niche it had in stall teams. I think for now I'm going to place Magmut in D tier. Unfortunately, there's better melees, there's better fires. It can't even really stand up against Earths because it's actually weak to Earths, and that's one of its type advantages. Thank you, Malchemical, for the follow. Not chatted with you before. How do you feel about the Pukeiarium? I love it. I really love the Pukeiarium. I'm not grinding through the the Tamer Pass real quick, but I am I'm gonna start every stream in my house next to the Pukeiarium as soon as I get it. Magma needs some sort of rework. Tem just never really worked. I made Temtem or Magma was really awesome when Gialis was strong. It was about like 2 or 3 metas ago. I think it was like season 2, season 1 or 2, and it performed incredibly well. People always underestimated it. You get one show off, and all of a sudden, like an Oshi will one shot like everything. It was good during the roller meta, and because of that, yeah, I mean, you can't really change Magma's traits because they're signature, and you can't. You just got to be careful because it can easily turn into a raid boss problem. I think what Magma really needs, if anything, is I don't know. I think Magma's actually fine as a Tem. It's just the meta doesn't favor it. And since this is going to be like a 1.4 patch tier list, that's the main reason why Magma's down. If Gallus comes back into the meta, if there's less waters and less earths around, I think it can shine in. Alright, but we're going to move on. Grandpa. Grandpa, ever since it lost HKS, hasn't been as good. Just hasn't been. Bully, I think, is kind of a bad trait even after they reworked it. It's fun to use, but it's just not great. Last Rush gives pretty solid value, but it forces you to be at a disadvantageous position to even get the value from it. Hurricane was a nice buff for it, but still being a mono wind kind of sucks. But its defensive stats are very good. It's just kind of its stamina that sucks. I've seen people use it effectively, and it really it walls me so often. I think it still gets value, more value than Magma, at least in this meta, but it's definitely not anything higher than C. We got Amphitheater. Still has Bright Beam and Intimidation. Amphitheater is like the late game king. You get it to a 1v1 situation in the late game, and you can almost always win because of the combination of Relaxed, Bright Beam, and Intimidation. It has speed control with Tesla Prison. It's actually pretty nice. The Amphitheater has like a full kit of everything it wants to do. It just only has one viable trait in Relaxed because Infectious is bad. I know that there was actually a thread on the main Discord talking about trying to rework Amphitheater, how it could be better. Curious to see how they do that. For the time being, like, Amphitheater just isn't great in this meta. It's not a bad Tem, it's just not great in this meta. Because the primary water we see is Schween, which can hit it super effective with Crystal. And the primary mental we see is Adoro, which also hits it super effective. So it's just kind of a bad, unfortunate type meta for the Amphitheater. So I'm going to place it C, but it still has a nice kit. It's just not a great meta for it. We got Mudrid. Mudrid lost Turbo this patch. It was already kind of niche. It's mainly used as a Crystal Deluge synergy, but nowadays Schween outshines it in that role. Being 4 times weak to melee is not great at all. Also being weak to water and nature, this thing can't hit Volphy, and Volphy's everywhere. Can't hardly hit Turok, and Turok's still very common. I think Mudrid's like borderline D tier. It's either C or D tier, just because once again the meta's not favoring it. D tier, yeah, that's fair. It needs mentals to enable it, but if it can get going, it's really solid. It still is super fast soil steams, which can be nice. Taifu. Taifu's a cool Tem. I really like the leech rework. I know some people aren't a fan of it, but I think it's cool. Being able to be like being able to be a raid boss and scale special attack to get good value and win late games, I think it's really cool. It has good coverage with Hypoxia, Dust Vortex, Stamina, and Health Regen with Gaia. It's got a pretty loaded kit. I think it still has Bark Shield too if it wants to set up. So we're going to place it in B tier. It's kind of only a good fit on like raid boss teams, so it's not super flexible. But on a team that it can actually utilize it, it can be very strong. Scaling special attack is kind of hard. It is. But even if you go like 0 special attack invests, Taifu has one of the hardest, or one of the highest special attack stats in the game. Taifu better than Tat? I think Taifu's better than Tat in this meta. Could just be me though. Like I said at the start, there's going to be some amount of bias on my part, what I think here. Haven't seen Taifu yet, but it looks good on paper. Yeah, I mean, just throw building blocks on Taifu and it's a better raid boss than Yowler in my opinion. It's just, most people aren't going to let you scale it up. And there's still a lot of toxics everywhere. So it does struggle a little bit. But it walls Shween. Alright, but we're on to Whiplump now. Whiplump got HKS, which is, it's really interesting, but it's not great. Whiplump doesn't really have a good turn 1 wind move. It used to be used on cold teams with Cold Breeze and Tsunami, but it is not. Both of those moves got nerfed pretty bad, so it kind of hurts. It's 4 times weak to electric, mediocre. I think Whiplump's going to go and C here. Most people are going to be running other waters this patch, namely Oshiara and Shween. Even Ukama's kind of better. Surprised Garunder's not higher. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of earths and crystals this patch, which hurt Garunder. It just it's a bit rough. I mean, I could add another tier, but it just like a B minus, B plus. No. I mean, at that point, it's just like. No, that would be really the only change here. And that would just make things worse. I'm going to stick with this for now. Render's the reason most tier Tems are there. I mean, there's other really good toxic. I mean, Adora's the best toxic in the patch. Then you have Mashuk as well as another toxic that's viable. Acronox is still very strong. We can put Garunder in A for now if you guys really want. It's borderline for sure. I just feel like it kind of goes down into B tier just because of its reliance on energy drink and its low physical defense. And it gets like completely walled by 2 entire types in the game because of Earth and Crystal. Alright, but anyways, next we have Skunch. Skunch got hit really hard. Slingshot changes. Made its best use as a P-Jabber, just poof, gone. Still has Ninja, Savage, Oshi, but without not having a turn 1, it hurts a lot more. 4 times weak to mental. I feel like most of its use is a bit rough now. You can still run shenanigans with like a fast Skunch and a slow Raikin for Quetzal synergies. But I think that Skunch is just got a place in C tier. Next is Mouflang. Mouflang's really cool. It's one of the better neutrals. One of the better neutrals because it's actually like one of the only fast neutrals now that, you know, just because Skunch got nerfed. So, because it's got Goring, it's got Hurry Wart, which is really nice. You still have Cage Shenanigans, but Held Anger is such a strong move. A Bestial Charge on turn 1 is insane value. Can't be ignored if you're running unnoticed. It's probably one of the best neutrals. I'd almost put it A tier, but I'd say B. Just because I think that People sleeping on execution as well. I tried running execution move flank, but every time I wanted to hit something, they would swap it out. Or the tem would just be even lower than the execution range. I guess I don't know the damage on execution well enough to use it effectively, but it might be worth trying again sometime. Alright. Next we got Rolder, which is just slow move flank with Earth type. I don't know. Rolder's even borderline D tier. Like, Rolder has a really bad type chart, primarily fixed by Reactive Vial. But Reactive Vial got nerfed after the Rolder meta. Rolder got a ton of stats removed, Goring nerfed, and it's never really recovered since then. It's an option on some bulky teams that want a neutral, but I mean, Stoneball nerf the synergy to digital and only one turn of burn, and even Rockfall, the same change. Those are two things that Rolder did use, especially on the Tardy Rush set with Rockfall. It didn't really deserve those nerfs, but Turok needed them, and it just collateral damage. Naga! Our first S tier. Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, Naga has Decidora, which is the complete bane of the existence of any teams that run speed invest. It basically it basically counters an entire archetype of like speedy hyper aggro teams, and is a must ban for so many teams. Being able to run heavy armor and get a ton of TVs in bulk and no speed at all and still be the fastest thing on the field, it's just pretty nuts. A lot of people specifically build teams to counter Naga or to deal with it in some way, but that just goes to show how strong Naga is. And Water Custodian was a cool buff too. It's not something I see often, but I think once Decidora gets changed next patch, Water Custodian might be more viable, but nowadays most people just counter Naga by putting a big red X over it in ban phase. I could put like Tental and Orphil on this tier list. I know Kip wanted me to put Orphil, and I love Tental, but I think I'm just going to keep it fully evolved Tems now. Most Tems like Orphil, Tental, like Towley and stuff, they would all go in C tier because they have use and they're pretty good at that one use, but it's very niche. So they can't really be higher, and they're not that low because they're usable. That's Cap. Yeah, I mean they're kind of cheese strats that take up. Pookie S tier. You're right. You know, I thank you Starla for reminding me. I should have done this first. Ta-da! All right, tier list is done. We're ending the video here, now, guys. Thank you for what? No. All right. So next we have Nidrasil though. Nidrasil, best toxic applier in the game because of Tri-Apothecary. One single allergic spread deals like 75% true damage to everything. It also has spores to offer utility for healing on its ally. Triphytologist is cool, but it's not... it has niche uses, and it's really cool. But it's not the most consistent ability. Most of the time, you're just going to want Tri-Apothecary. It has Narco Hit for coverage. It's basically a mental type without the weaknesses of it. Nox Bomb for solid toxic damage. Bark Shields. Yup, exactly. It's just a super good. Maybe because of all the wins. I think it still gets use even in the wins, because if a win swaps into Nidrasil and Nidrasil just clicks allergic spread, it still gets its value because of the toxic that applies, even if it's off the field afterwards. Like, you can't swap in a wind to eat hits from Nidrasil except Volarend because of the toxics or the poison, and that's part of what makes it OP. Kapire, Sorry, Starla. I love Capire, but out of all the fire options in the game, it's one of the worst. Kind of gets outclassed in everything it wants to do. The only advantage it really has over some other fire types is that it can click heat up, but nowadays Hazrat is the better fire for that. It has flaming meteorite, but I don't know. I just F in the chat for Capire. I think I'm not gonna make an F tier because the D tier is hardly filled up at all so far. Its advantage is Last Rush. Yeah, but Last Rush, as much as I love it as an ability, it forces you to be in a disadvantageous position to actually get value out of it. So you typically want to not have to be in range to Last Rush to get the Last Rush bonus. Right, Zenareth. I think Zenareth got a huge buffs the last couple patches because like 2 patches ago it got knockback. This last patch it got a huge buff to its physical set actually. I haven't seen anyone run it because actually I don't know why I haven't seen anyone run it. But I think it's really strong now. It's actually got the highest base stat total in the game between the Tattoo nerfs and the insane buffs to it. I think it has a lot of potential. I think next patch we could see it in A tier, but I think in this current one it's just going to be B. It's just going to be B tier. It's B because guest trait and draft. I don't know if that's really the reasoning why, but I mean that is something to keep in mind. Yeah. What did it get for physical? It just got an insane stat boost. Yep, and then it's still the best crystal or strongest crystal spiker in the game. Also, technically, also for physical, there's the humiliating slap synergy that's now crystal. So you can H slap into like a crystal bite or something. But I have not really seen anyone do that. Alright, so next is Aohi, Aohi, not Owlhi, the fire mental type. I haven't seen a lot of it this season, honestly, not much at all. It's kind of got 2 very distinct sets. It's got a physical set with Quetzaleno and Matter Teleports, but it has a much lower physical stat, and its special set has Fiery Soul and no great mental move. So it has use. I think the Warm Gift set is decent, but Ignis is such a strong trait, it can just win end games. It's almost similar to Amphitheater that game. It's a late game cleaner, essentially, is what Aohi is. And it does that job pretty well, but that job isn't great in this meta because it's a lot of tanky things, and most of the time people are just going to kind of let stuff in and leave it die instead of leaving it for the end for Aohi to clean it all up. I think it's a good C tier, on the higher end of C tier. Next we got Baboa. Baboa actually got buffed with the Toxic Slime, now doing a tick of Toxic, because almost every Baboa you saw that wasn't stall oriented was running Schween's Horn Toxic Slime for a turn 1 water move, and it's already like a cheap Cold Geyser, but now it does a Toxic Tick as well. It's kind of insane. Also, Water Cutting Lily, super strong move. I think the problem with Baboa is just that there's too many viable Toxic types in this meta. I think it's a super strong Tem, though. If it wasn't for all the Toxics, I would put it in A tier, but I think it's going to have to be in B. There's still teams that with like the Mimich and Nature Quest Cheese. So for maximize the use out of Water Cutting Lily, get value that way. Next we got Obi. One of my favorite Tems last patch. Emphasis on last patch. This one I haven't seen it used much. I know that it was everywhere during the blue screen shenanigans, but we are beyond that now. This is 1.4.1, and it lost blue screen. Since then, I haven't seen it much at all. Target rep, I think, still has some amount of use, but Digi-Threats, being 4 turns of Doom, hurts. It lost Burrow, so it only has one option for evasion with Bush. Bush is on 2 hold, though. Plasma Beam and Tesla Prison are good supportive moves, but I just don't think its support is, I don't know. It's borderline CD tier. I think it's a really low C tier. Lost Microchip Cheese, yep, that as well. It's just not an offensive threat. It can be ignored really often. You just got to count turns until Bush. Kaku. Unfortunately D tier. But Saku. Saku lost Bark Shield. Its stall set really just got completely gutted, destroyed. I feel bad. It's one of the biggest losers of this patch. If not the biggest. All it gained in return was Paddle Dagger, but almost every single Saku wants to run Frond Whip anyways. So I think it still is really nice. Like, Lifeful Sap is still really strong. It's just its stall set moved from like A, B tier down to D tier, and its bruiser set I think is still a solid B. I ran it on my team during the MSI. It can win so many late games just by getting a type advantage. It completely walls Volphy. Like, you can just ignore Volphy the entire game and get it to a late game with Saku, and ta-da, you win. Narco hit coverage is incredible, not to be underestimated. Prio with Boomerang and Turbine, even though it's slow. Frond Whip, Underspeed, Naga. It's just got a bit of a rough type chart for a slow Tem. So we got Valash. Jack of all trades only gives 1 boost to either attack or special attack now. Scavenger set's still alright. But I think Valash is in a rough spot. Jack of all trades nerf needed to happen for sure, but it's just not what it used to be. Really, you think Valash is B tier? I strongly disagree. His Crystal Spike set might be B tier just with his Scavenger, but at that point, why not just use Zenareth? Zenareth has higher BST now, higher damage Crystal Spikes. Only thing you'd really use Valash for over Zenareth is for the neutral synergy, but neutral synergy teams just aren't very strong this patch. +1 Major Slash is really strong. It's not though. It's really not. It has Ninja, which is okay, but a +1 Major into Ninja doesn't even kill most bulky Tems because it's not super effective. I should just pull up a calc here. Just what Tem should I use as an example? I have no idea. We'll use everyone's favorite Garunder. It's got low defense, so it should do quite a bit. I guess no, but you're not going to be clicking a Major Slash against Garunder. Maybe like Turok. Might be a bit unfair to use Turok. I could use Tattoo, that works. Alright, even if you go max attack invests, +1 attack, it barely does half to a Tattoo. Does the Ninja finish it off? Yeah, and a Major Slash plus Ninja doesn't even kill the Tattoo. Negative damage, it heals Turok. Yeah, I mean, Turok. I could do like a bulky Volphy instead. It'll just do like a 400 HP Volphy. It takes the Major Slash, only taking like 70% if it's 0 defense, invest 400 HP. And then still gets the Dust Vortex off and basically one-shots Valash. If it doesn't run speed, then it can get Sledge Gifted. So, don't know. Grumper one-shots Funky's Valash while the +1 Major Slash to the third of Grumper's HP. Exactly. Yeah. I think the Valash is unfortunately C tier. And I'm just going to stick with that one. Next we have Owlhe. High risk, high reward. I feel like it's just a synergy bot. A synergy C Spikes bot, basically. Jode is dead, and Scavenger's okay. But we spent a lot of time on Valash. Next we have Alhi. I don't know why I thought about that one. Alhi needs a bit of help. There's a thread on the Discord right now, just like Amphitheater, for what to do with Alhi. Curious what they're going to do. It's got a lot of buffs over the last few patches. Changes around. It lost Boomerang, which actually hit it harder than it helped in what it got in return. People say it needs special defense, but I think that we're basically just getting to like if you just throw stats at every Tem to make it more balanced, then you're not actually playing around a Tem's weaknesses. I think a Tem like Alhi, what you need is to give it something that makes it worth playing around its low special defense. Alhi has nothing. You play Tutsu if you want a melee wind type. And it has like Oshi and Bruiser, so I guess it's kind of like the strongest melee nuker in the game. But that's about it. 3 prio melee. I mean, you could give it like Martial Strike, sure. But that's... I'm not sure what other than... I think it would be fun to give it Telekinetic. Since it's a split evolution from Towley, it's got roots in being a mental type. It would be cool if it got a physical mental move. Then you could run quad coverage with melee, wind, mental, and toxic because it has Nox Bomb as well. I think that might help. Exactly, Millie. But if you look at the thread on the main Discord for Aldi, almost everyone's just saying to give it stats. And when I said that we shouldn't do that for Amphitheater, people disagreed with me. I'll probably say it again for the Aldi thread. Otherwise, we are just going to end up with every Tem being the exact same with stats-wise. But don't know. We'll have to see. There's also talk about changing its trait determined to something else. But right now, Alhi's best option is like it's just not good in this meta, unfortunately. People want to buff Shween stat-wise for some reason. Oh my goodness, please no. Next is Barnshee. Kind of Alhi's counterparts. Probably in the same tier. It has time split still, but because of its extremely low defense and bad defensive typing, it just can't make use of it very well. Bamboozle, which was like the thing's one control move, got nerfed to be on a hold, so it has the tools, but it does not have the stats to use it. And in this meta, it's just not going to be used. It's just, I'd say its best thing is that it can hit a Doro with Toxic Skin and not get the Toxic Skin proc because of neutrality. It's also got low base stamina, so it's kind of rough. Gallus I don't think will ever be a bad Tem, but nowadays it's just kind of like right smack dab in a middle tier. It doesn't have any good turn ones. Double Gash is okay, but it's not great. But Hook Kick, Crystal Bite, and Sharp Stabs on the second fastest Tem in the game with high HP and really solid attack. Mirroring trait, it will never be bad. It's just a middle tier net right now, I'd say. Next we have Mix. I don't think Mix itself is not bad. But ever since all the spread moves in the game got nerfed, or sorry, all of them got buffed, it's a lot harder to run. Because Mix always runs Puppet Master. So when it's below 40% health, it can't be targeted. That's just like one special use. It just can't. It's just, yeah. It gets hit too often by spread moves that are just everywhere nowadays. So I don't think it can be higher than C tier. But if an opponent is not prepared, or you're able to ban out the spread moves on a team, then Mix can still run through teams. If you're running like a raid boss bulky set, or like a running it next to a raid boss bulky team something. All right. Also can hit a Doro for not getting a toxic tick. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because of resistance is an option. I guess that's one little thing in its favor, but I think it's still B tier. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Mix can't hit a Doro because it will get a toxic tick and die even faster. Rip Mix. Hopefully it comes back in the meta sometime. It's a cool time. Maybe it gets a different ability, a second trait, because Rejuve just isn't a great fit for it. Raiken is the slightly better Kapire. Prideful's really good. It can't be ignored because it'll just scale infinitely by getting kills, which is exactly what it wants to do. It has Held Anger, which it can use to hit anything that resists fire, but that's kind of a long hold. It got nerfed with the Rush nerf, which is super unfortunate, because that nerf was mainly aimed towards Gorong. I don't think it's D tier. I think it still has use. It still applies a lot of pressure as a Tem, but it's not any higher than C. Yeah, I mean, Meteor Swarm still applies 2 turns of burn, but having double fires on a neutral fire board feels bad. Roar nerf? Oh, I completely forgot about that. Yeah. Raze got completely gutted because Roar got removed from Raiken, so the Motivator Raiken support set got hit really hard as well. It has King's Roar still, but that's on one longer hold, and normally you wanted to run both because they were such good utility, but yeah. Maybe they'll revert that change. We can only hope. Piranhans! Well, it should be right next to Pookie, so ta-da. But no, in reality, I love Piranhans. I don't think it's D tier. It's one of I think it's the best H-Slap user. I think Lulu and most people who watch the tournament would disagree with me and say Tuvine is. Some people also say Tutsu is. But I think Piranhans is the one that's able to fit it into its moveset the easiest. Energy Reserve's got a slight buff, activates sooner. I think it's really nice, but it's still a very niche pick. It's not higher than C. But still one of my favorite Tims. Scaravolts. You actually saw a ton of Scaravolts. The half full special attack going back up to 2. I'm going to place it in A for here, but I think I might move it down to B for now. So it's half full for a while. It only gave +1 special attack, but +2 but +2 physical attack. Then now they made it so that it gets both special attack and physical attack. And they gave it Embers, so it has a turn 1 fire move as an option. People were using had the half full sets really well, swapping it in with Baton Pass. Thunder Strikes hit really hard. Fire Tornado hits even harder. If you can time the Refreshing Diabolo to proc, it's super good. For Kaleidoscope Volphy, passing a Lifeful Sap, crazy good. I think, and the Good Friend set is also like really nice in the right situations. I think it's like a really high B or a low A. I don't think it's quite A tier just because of the 4 times Earth weakness, and with Turox and Volphy still around. But it's definitely been a really solid Tem this patch, and I think we'll continue to see more of it for the future. Legend. Another like consistent Tem through the patches. It's got good offensive pressure with Harmful Microwaves, Hellfire, and Fire Tornado. Insanely good ability with Gotta Go Fast, makes all its moves high prio. But Hellfire did get nerfed. And I mean, it could easily be A tier. It could easily be A. I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. It's just so good on so many teams. Plasma Beam offers support. Zen Meditation, if you want to try and run it, I wouldn't recommend it, but it has it as an option. Generify opens up a lot of possibilities next to neutrals. Kaleidoscope synergy as well. Binary Flood, that's a good point. Yep, the seized on it is crazy good. And just the amount of damage on digital unresisted spread move. Yeah. Hedgen's an A tier. Has been for a long time, but never quite S. I'd say Hedgen's one of the most balanced Tems in the game. Osakai. I think Osakai is a little bit unexplored this patch. At least its body stretch set. Sensei doesn't exist anymore because its only physical or its only special melee move was Hook, and you wanted to always use Hook with Slingshots, but now Slingshot got reworked entirely, so Sensei Osakai does not exist. You know, I think yeah, it's probably got to be C tier realistically, because Sensei's not viable. So it has body stretch. Body stretch is super good. If you're facing a physical team or a slower team, and you can get defensive buffs up on your Osakai, I think like it can just win late games with 5 pph and just spamming rest. It's not D tier by any means. It definitely has use, but it's not. It gets countered by too much. Its defensive type chart is super bad. Got rid of Toughen because you needed the turn 1 melee. Ah, unfortunate. What's your set then? It would be 5 pph, Jinx Whisper. I don't know what you really click other than rest and toughen then. I guess I run Nito as my offensive move. Do you run like Rockfall as well? Just so you have a second option? For type chart and you just kind of like actually kill stuff instead of Doomstall, maybe? I don't know. Next is Saipat. Saipat got the Massage Nito Earthbreaker. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, Saipat got the biggest rework of all the Tems this patch. It is made from like a slower, bulkier Tem to be a speedier attacker. It got a new ability in Shinobi Tactics, but still retained quite a bit of its bulk. Skip does not like the new Saipat. I do like the new Saipat. Shinobi Tactics is cool. Amphibian's still useful. It has 2 viable abilities. It has a pretty decently wide move set with options. Got a good stat spread. It's just its defensive type is trash. It is awful. 1 speed higher than Hedgen. Yup, it's the perfect Hedgen counter. Has Ice Cubes with Ice Cubes buffs, but it also gets like... Usually it's going to run Shween's Horn, and I think Venomous Claws is just better. I don't think it's in C tier, but it's not higher than B. It's kind of middling now, but from a Tem that was like constantly in D tier for every single patch, for it to move up to B, I think is really solid. I think we'll continue to see Saipat used on more than just Shween Rage teams nowadays. From now on, I think it'll see use. It won't be super common, but it will see use, I bet. I mean, I used it in the MSI, so it felt pretty good there. Ah, Drakash, poor Drakash, no. Drakash's best use and basically only niche was on Hellfire teams, and Hellfire got nerfed. And Drakash only got a couple piddle stats as compensation. I think it got like 2 HP and like 1 special defense or something. So yeah, it needs a better Earth type move because right now it has Mud Shower and Sandstorm. Neither one hit very hard. Sandstorm's on a hold, but it's a spread move. Mud Shower just kind of sucks. But yeah, Drakash needs some help. It's not. Dust Vortex would be cool. It's still got a bad defensive type chart, so I don't even think that would be that bad. I think it would be better than Soil Steam, although thematically Soil Steam would fit it better. Spread move Dust Vortex? No, that would be too much. I think Drakash is close to being good. If it just has a better Earth type move, it could definitely jump up to like B tier easily. But right now it's going to be in D. Fortnite. Yeah. I haven't seen so Tord Knight used to be cool as like a bulky special attacker with efficient for stamina efficiency and stuff, but I haven't seen that since the Sparks nerf. So nowadays it's just seen on stall teams. It lost Stonewall. It used to be one of the best buffers in the game because it had Quartz Shield and Stonewall, as well as the option to Cage. But that it lost Stonewall, so it now only has Quartz Shield and Cage if it wants, with Confined. But the reason I'm placing in C tier and not in D tier is because of the Doom rework, and Tord Knight is one of the remaining consistent Doom Tems with Tord Knight's Garden as an option. So I think on a Doom stall team, the Tord Knight can really shine and still get some use, but that's about the only place it's going to see use, so I think C tier is pretty fitting for it. Wouldn't place it any higher for sure. Inky. Inky is very strong. It's always the special attacks Spec Master Inky is like the hardest hitting electric type turn 1 or whatever. It's just it hits so many things super hard with T-Strike. Has evasion with Bright Beam. Quartz Dirt's not great, but at least it has a special crystal move it can use. Fizz Master is way lower. Sparkling Bullet got nerfed really bad after Golzy and Minotaur abused it too much. So I think it's going to be a good fit for B tier here. It does so much damage, but it's very frail. It gets walled completely by Earth types and a couple other Tems as well. Like Volphy, one of the most common Tems in the patch, is this thing's the bane of this thing's existence because Sludge Gift outspeeds it and one-shots it. So yeah, it's just going to be B tier. Still hits very hard though. If there's no Volphy in play, like it can deal like half of a Turok's health with T-Strike. Yeah, and it can't even hit Volphy. Yep, exactly. Because it's 4 times resisted when using T-Strike, and Quartz Dirt doesn't even hit it because of Team Elusive. Yeah, Shaolant, another loser of the patch. Shaolant got like 5 moves removed from his move pool, and 1 was added. It was already kind of in a rough spot. Love a Tem that should hard counter Naga, but usually has to ban it. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, this is this super because it's super fast and Naga just flips turn order. Yep. Shaolant really doesn't have much left. It's kind of I like that it's one of the better users of Kesugatame, but it's basically just a welcomer bot. After Welcomer's procced, it's kind of ignorable. Inner Spirit does some damage. It's just a monotype melee just isn't that crazy good. It's basically only used for Welcomer, but that's really about it. I don't know what to say. It's such a plain Tem. I think it'll probably get its identity refined in future patches, but for now it's just a special melee. Cycrox is A tier. I should say Neurotoxins is A tier. Funnily enough, 2 out of the 3 times Learning Composure got gutted extremely hard, and then you have Ragnath that just got straight up buffed and probably will never slot it. Exactly, that is really funny. Composure was the new move that was added to the game, and with this patch, only 3 times learned it. Shaolant, Valiar, and Ragnath. Shaolant and Valiar both are D tier, and Ragnath got a huge stat buff, but we'll get to him later. Cycrox, Doom is really strong now that they removed the Doom removal from Purgation and changed the move to Beef Up. Restore is a bad move. Almost nobody wants to run it. Masogi, Laundry, Black Hole, other moves are few and far between. Reset's not a common one. There's just very few ways to remove Doom easily. The Cycrox can almost take at least 1 Tem with it, and then afterwards, it can just use strangle or digi-threat, or even deal damage with like harmful microwaves. So it just applies constant pressure as long as it's on the field. Also, with reactive vial, it's able to live just about any double in. It's a very strong Tem. Almost nobody wants to use restore. Is still generous. You can cut the almost. I've seen a few players try and run it. But I guess if I say nobody wants to use it, then yes, it would be nobody. But people who try to use it do exist. Only used in stall, basically, yeah. And you can't self-restore, yeah. Restore is a mediocre, like, it's a really bad move in itself. All they did was make a bad move. They moved an essential or a really important thing into a move that nobody wants to use to try and get people to use the move instead of making the move usable first. I don't know. It's how it ended up. Next is Pocus. Pocus got time split removed, but it's still it's a mental type that can be played on stall teams. It's got Depress. It's got Denigrate, which is arguably the best move in the game right now. I've heard that said a lot. It's a spread mental move that lowers special attack on both sides. You guys still able to hear me? I got a message that says OBS disconnected. Could somebody confirm that in chat? Okay. Shoot. Oh, hello. Are we back? I don't know how that's going to affect the recording. You guys able to hear me now? I have no idea what that was. I just got a message that says disconnected. Last time it happened because an application was downloading in the background. Something was updating and I didn't tell it to. So, I don't know. Alright, I was talking about Pocus. Pocus is it's a strong raid boss. Has Denigrate, which is arguably the best move in the game. Solid healing with Rejuve. Good stamina pool, high special attack, decent defense stats. Yeah, I'd say it's a solid B tier. Wouldn't place it any higher though. But Pocus and B and the internet disagreed. Well, this isn't one of Reizo's tier lists, so. Next we got Golzy. Golzy's got a really nice offensive typing, like crazy good offensive typing. But it's got Sparkling Bullet nerfed. Hasty Lunge actually came back to 90 BP here, but Hasty Lunge is a bad move. Diffuser's a nice trait. I wouldn't place it any higher than B. It does its job well, but like it dies to Crystal Spikers, dies to harmful microwaves, and it's overall pretty frail. Sludge Gift from Volphy almost always outspeeds, so if it's taken any chip at all, it'll basically finish off the Golzy. So I guess that's probably the main reason why people don't use it. We got Mashuk. I think Mashuk's A tier. It's like the best turbo user now, I would say. Tireless gives a ton of value. Parrier also gives a ton of value. It's able to use Perfect Jab pretty well. Wastewater. It's got a pretty flexible kit. High offensive pressure. Can't be ignored. Yeah. It's a very solid Tem for sure. On either slower teams or even faster scaling teams. So we got Mastion. Even without Slingshot, yeah. I mean, most people just run War Drum nowadays because it's more or less wants to be paired next to other physical attackers to get P-Jab value. So otherwise, double screen's good. I'm not sure what people run on the tireless sets. I haven't run one before, or I haven't run one in a while, but I think it's still just one of the few items. Bastion I'm placing in C. The fact that it gets walled by water types is kind of a hit. If you want a Lava Wave user in this meta, I feel like Hazorat's just better. It's once again kind of like on cheese teams with Baboa. Or I think they called it fishing aggro in the tutorial videos, where you just run it next to a Koish and like a Mimit, and you can get some physical high pressure damage off. But I just don't think it's fantastic. It does its job well on the right teams, but it's not super splashable or anything. I think C tier is a good fit for it. Ukama. I think Ukama's B tier, mostly because Ukama and Oshiara are extremely similar tems, but Oshiara has risen above it, and most people just opt to use Oshiara over Ukama nowadays. Ukama lost Turbo, which wasn't a common move on it, but it was used sometimes. I mean, Ukama basically has like one flex slot. Every single Ukama runs Water Cannon, Tsunami, and Aquatic Whirlwind, but then the last slot used to either be like Turbo or Sharp Rain. Nowadays, it's kind of forced to be Sharp, or I guess they can run Blizzard or Denigrate too. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't think Ukama is better than Oshiara this patch, so I'm not going to put him in the same tier. We'll get to Oshiara later though, but I'm pretty sure that one's going in A. Ragnit. Lelouch made this work in the Invitational. I'm really surprised. I don't think Ragnit's that good still. Even with the defensive stat buffs, it's still a mono electric. It has its niche with P-Jab, that it's like the only P-Jab user not weak to mental, and in fact it's super effective against mental. It's able to have Electro Punch to underspeed Naga and just one-shot it. Has Electric Custodian to be paired with anything weak to electrics, and which is usually digitals, gets Electro Punch synergy, and if you run it faster, you can get Hypnosis off. So I mean, it's got a decent support set, but being a monotype with kind of low speed is just really detrimental. I think it's okay. Maybe it's just that it hasn't been experimented with enough now, and we'll see more of it since Lelouch won the tourney with it. But I just think it's too niche. It's not splashable. Hello, Senpai. Welcome. I do think Mouflank is B tier. I mean, when you put Mouflank next to the rest of the A tiers, I think it's just not quite as good. And I don't feel like splitting up B tier to B minus and B plus tier, because that would be more or less pointless. Next we have Size Munch, another tem that Lulu used. I think Size Munch almost always lands in B. It's kind of like Gialis, where it's every patch it has its niche. It's I don't know. I kind of want to place it in C tier. Yeah. Yeah. Size Munch's defensive type chart is bad. It's the same as Osekai's. It's just really bad defensively. Its special defense is low. It has a fast speed, but it lost Slingshot, so it can't use Hook Slingshot to get the boost anymore. It's basically everyone nowadays is running Heat Up, which is nice, but that option was there before. It's just suboptimal. You almost always know exactly what it's going to do. Like, you just watch for Size Munch Wreck and then swap in resists and chip it down when possible. It can still be super threatening, but it's, yeah. I think part of the reason Lelouch won was because it wasn't the best traded a lot. Yeah, Lelouch's spreads definitely caught me off guard when I faced him. He has crazy good spreads. It was also a really interesting team. I really liked his team, for sure. I just think it's worth bringing up for anyone who watches the video afterwards that even though this tem was on a team of the player who won the tournament, that in general, it's not that great. It's just that a top player made really good use out of it. Next we have Zyzer. Ah, I, I'm not sure about this one. I think it's kind of D tier. A mono Earth type is bad when you have options like Turok and Volphy. It has Piercing Whale as a signature move, so if you have a slower, bulkier team that can make use of the defense drop, it can be somewhat useful. But Earth type defensively is really bad. It's weak to Nature, Water, and Melee. And it's like the second or third slowest Tem in the game, so it's always going to get hit twice if it wants before it even gets a hit off. So many double ends just kill the thing before it even moves. I just think it doesn't get enough value. I got, Rested. Rested is OP with 2-wire. So we'll put it in C for that combo. But I mean, Zyzar alone just isn't overly threatening. I did run it earlier in the season on a team and tried it out. It felt okay, but I ended up removing it just because lack of type coverage. Getting completely walled by waters, natures, and winds feels bad. Especially when there's like Volphy everywhere. So I would say Zyzar's low C, maybe high D tier. Yeah. Gorong. I think it's still better than the stuff in D tier. That's fair. That's, yeah. Gorong has the second lowest base stat total of all fully evolved Tems, only behind Mimit. I guess Mimit and Roller. My bad. It's the third lowest. Gorong's still decent. The rush nerf hit it so bad though. It can't OX on turn 1 unless you have a minimum stam and a mom's lunch for wrenching massage, which feels bad. It's not that it's not even that it's just harder to use. It's just it gets less value than the base stat total thing doesn't matter, I should say, because it's just a min-max Tem. It's just funny. It's a monumental. It's definitely far worse than Mashuk. I can't really justify using Gorong on any teams. I used to run it on my tag team for a while, and it was really nice. But after the rush nerf, it just sucks. It gets walled so easily. It can't scale as fast, which was its like one advantage. I can't. It's better than most of these, but I mean, if you're noticing a pattern, like mono melee just isn't great, or just melee types in general aren't great. I think I'm gonna leave Gorong in D tier. It's definitely arguable. Definitely. Kind of the same place as Zyzer. It's just like a high D, low C tier. Might work on stall. Yeah, but like what does a Gorong do on turn 1? Install like uppercut for Volphy, but a Volphy's not going to stay on the field in front of it. It's just, yeah, poor Gorong's in a rough spot. And show off. Do you really want to use? I guess it has the move slot for it. But at that point, what's the point in running Tireless? Why not run Seismic? And Seismic is a bad trait. You almost want to invest stamina in Gorong and then just use show off. I don't know. It's just, yeah. Gorong it needs something else now, I think. It also lost Kesekatame, which I think was a cool flex slot on it. Anyways. Sanbi. Monumental got hit pretty hard. It lost both. Did it lose Hypno or did it lose Bamboozle? Or did it lose neither? I thought I remember in the patch notes that it lost. I thought I remember that it lost one or the other. It lost Bamboozle. I know it lost Time Split. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it lost Paralyzing Poison,
Bamboozle, and Time Split. Like, Paralyzing Poison wasn't used much on it, but Bamboozle and Time Split are kind of big nerfs. Bamboozle was a really nice turn 1 option for support Zambies, and it was also so people didn't have to run Matter Teleport and they could run Transient Echo instead. Time Split was a really strong move. It still is a strong move, but they removed it from it. It's one of the more consistent mentals between it and Pocus. So it's probably still a B tier. It's got insane attack. It's kind of like a mental nuker, basically, just because of its attack stat and Matter Teleport. It's just way less flexible than last patch. Last patch it was like an A or probably an A tier. Yeah, Paralyzing Poison. I would have actually loved if they kept the move on it. I'm a bit sad they removed it. That's what sucks now because it's on Barnshee and Vental. It's not that the move sucks, it's that the Tems suck. Got Momo. I don't think Momo's quite A tier, but it's definitely a B tier. Momo, it's just super consistent again. It's a neutral nuker. It just has knockback and undermine to deal half the health of whatever it gets hit off on. It's got a high base speed, so it outspeeds almost every bulky offense team, which is really nice. It gets most of them just run bulky nut bar and just kind of like try and survive hits as much as possible. But I think it's a really solid Tum. Like, you can't leave it alone at all. It also offers a little bit of support with Bark, which is cool. Willpower Drain as well. Can scale with Refresh. Sharpen Sambi learns Lullaby and Hypnosis. Yeah, don't bring that up. Cowrin. I thought Cowrin would be D tier. Honestly, it might be. Just because of the other... You're competing with so many other Earths for a slot on the team. I just don't think Cowrin has it. I tried a gravel bag Cowrin on a team the other day, and it was fun, and it actually put in a lot more work than I thought. But in general, I just don't think it's that great. Loses to the whole meta, yeah. It's got some nice stat buffs. I think eventually it could be really nice. Cowrin could be a good support install. Yeah, buff drawer is cool. Might be worth trying at some point, but I don't think this is the meta for it, unfortunately. So it's just going to have to sit in D tier. Cerny. Cerny's really cool now. I love New Settling. New Settling's really cool. But it's a mono nature type. It's harder to raid boss than before because so many options to buff have been removed. Petal Dagger was also, I don't know if it was a big buff. It's more like just a new option now. Water Cutting Lilies still did a whole bunch of damage. It's basically that you can save like 100 TVs in stamina to invest in bulk, but you're still dealing less damage. So it's arguably not that great, but it's an option. Good stamina move it was missing. I mean, most stall sets are going to want to run Revitalize, Gaia, and Bush. Don't need Sweatband anymore. Oh, I guess that's true. You can run Building Blocks instead now. I mean, if we're not talking about Tems that are enabled completely by items, probably. No, I think it's just going to be in B tier. It's a Tem that can threaten so many teams because nature is such a really good defensive buff. Don't think you're on Gaia with Petal. Maybe you don't, but I mean, it's still nice to have a 20% heal with Gaia for such a cheap move. Plus, you don't have to worry about resting every other turn then. You only just need to click Gaia once every 4. Old Settling might have been better for Raid Boss because it would stack +8 attack, but it can't now. I think it's more consistent this way. Plus it scales quicker, which is cool. Yeah, without Sweatband or Sweatbanding. Well, I only ran it as a bruiser, so I guess maybe you guys know better than I do here. Noxolotl. I think Nox is still a good Tem. It's one of the better turbo users. Has Hypno for support. Gets Toxic Skin, which is a crazy good ability. But everything that Nox wants to do, Adoro does better. Pretty much. That's just how it is. But it still does have a niche with Trance and Madness buff. So many players just don't expect Nox to be an offensive threat. And if there aren't enough toxic resists on a team, Nox can just run through a full team. Easy. Plus, special attackers are really prevalent this meta, so having special defense buffs is more valuable than it's been in previous metas. Yeah, Hazardov's the one that showed me how good Nox can be in this meta. Pillow's a really nice item as well for the just free healing with Trance and Narco, you know. But it's not overly consistent. It's niche, so I think C tier is going to be a good fit for it. Gulder, I haven't tried new Gulder yet, so I could be completely wrong, but I haven't seen anyone else run it. I've played I don't know how many games this patch. It's been quite a few, probably like over 100 or so, and I don't think I've seen a single Gulder. Gulder's moveset was already very small. It basically runs Tink, or in previous patches it ran Tink, Bamboozle, Purgation, and Pollution. But nowadays, it lost, or the Doom removal from Purgation got removed, Bamboozle's on a hold, and Charcoal Wall, which was sometimes an option instead of Pollution, got removed from its move pool. In place, it got Venom Spread. So it basically, almost all of its few tools got nerfed. And all it got in compensation was Venom Spread, but its special attack stat, I don't think it's even that high. Like, what even is it? Dude, I don't even know where Gulder is on this. I guess it's past all the Tems I went through already. Special attack stat 68. I guess that's higher than its attack, which is funny, but that's not very high at all. So, yeah, there's better Venom spreaders out there. I guess you wouldn't have to speed scuff. You could run it with some stuff that's unconventional to apply toxic. You could run it like you could easily run a 2-wire Gulder Venom spread combo without having to scuff an Acronox or speed up a 2-wire. So maybe, but I just don't think it's that good. I really don't. I think it's going to be D tier. I haven't seen it at all. It's just bad. I wish I could split Volarend into two here, because anaerobic Volarend would go right here in D tier. Anaerobic got some nasty nerfs. Anaerobic now only gives +1 special defense. And it got us a little bit of attack and a special defense, I think. It just got an attack buff, but 56 attack is still a joke. It's so bad. Plus losing the Doom removal on Purgation is trash. So physical Volarend is still really rough. But it got Wind Burst, so its aerobic set is even better. But it hasn't been experimented with much this patch. I think it could easily be B tier. It's hard to judge because I haven't seen it much, but I think it would actually be B tier. Because the Wind Burst is a really nice move. Hyperkinetic is pretty strong. And, I mean, you still get Tornado. Toxic Plume got changed again, so now it's only on 1 hold, but only lowers attack by 1 with Synergy. But it's still a strong Toxic move to use. It's still like the Toxic killer, and if you look at the A tier right now, we got like 5 Toxics in it. So, I mean, for that reason, it's also really solid. So yeah, I think B tier is fine, but this is specifically for aerobic Volarend. Anaerobic is really not great. It's I would say is D tier. Aches, you were saying same team, same times in D tier again, except Gorong. Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, I. That's definitely true. I don't know what else to say about that. It is sad to see. Most of them are all monotypes too. I, except I don't know. Hopefully they'll fix a few things in the next patch. That's what we always got to hope for. I think they said they are doing a mid-season patch too, but I'm gonna guess it's mostly gonna be nerfs rather than buffs. Because if they buff something and it becomes too strong, then they could just take over the meta for the rest of the patch. Alright. Next. We got Grumper. Grumper got Dust Vortex and Tesla Prison, but nobody cares about Tesla Prison because it got Dust Vortex. Just so good. Grumper had the same problem as Drakash, where it didn't have a good Earth move. But at least Grumper had Sludge Gift, so it had priority, which is kind of cool. But now it has Dust Vortex. Oh, it's so cool. I want to run Grumper on more teams. Grumper's such a cool Tem. I love the thing. And now that it's more viable than before, I'm going to run it sometimes. Unfortunately, like, it's not crazy good. It's not like A tier good, but it is definitely B tier. For sure. It's got a crazy good offensive typing. Its defensive typing isn't great. One of the types it wants to hit is water, which is actually weak to. But if you look at Grumper's stat spread, it's crazy good. It's got a really good moveset now. Inductor is such a good ability. Free healing whenever it uses an electric move. It's good Stonewall support. Also, if you're running it next to Taifu for raid boss, it gets Sparks to scale Taifu's special attack, which is a nice boost. So yes, Grumper's good now. Worth using for sure. Yeah, there's a few people in chat who might want to turn off their monitors here. No. So Gazma used to be D tier. So at least to Aches' comment earlier, all the same times are in D tier. Gazuma did move up. I don't know. I'm a bit conflicted here because, in my opinion, I think Gazuma is C tier. But a lot of people are using it. A lot of high-level players as well. So there must be something I'm missing with it that makes it a higher tier. Maybe people are just kind of still experimenting and just aren't sure. So what Gazuma offers is basically turbo, sort of Sparks if you really need it, but Sparks is still kind of bad. It gets Hurricane for fast speed, and it offers speed control with Tesla Prison. It gets fast. It gives fast charge too, but it's always done that. Hurricane was really the only change to it, and Hurricane got buffed, so now it does. It gives +2 special attack. How much damage does Hurricane do now? Just 77. Oh no, Synergy does 92. A 92 damage spread move is actually really good. Stamina cost only costing 20 is... Like, Synergy Hurricane is insane. But the problem is that you have to use it next to a digital for that. Oh yeah, I guess Gazma got a speed boost too. That's right. I still don't remember Gazma's new speed tier, 75. You know what? Yeah, Gazma only has one weakness in Crystal. Crazy good offensive type. It's only walled by electric, but other than that, it hits a lot of stuff. Yeah, I guess it's not that great offensively. But I guess I'm gonna leave it in B tier. Between the stat buffs, the Hurricane buff, I think it's definitely got its uses more than it's ever had before. Next we have Oshiara. I mentioned it earlier. Oshiara goes in A tier. It's not quite good enough to be S tier, I don't think. It's the best water Tem in the... Oh no, Naga's water and Pookie's water. Cerbatio's is crazy good value. Being able to attack and scale your special attack is really nice. Also, it's got Hurry Wart to get holds off faster. You can, because of the special attack boost from Serbatios, you don't even need to invest very much in special attack, so you can invest a lot of HP in speed. It's tied for the second highest speed in the game with Gyalis Ukama. Gazma's solid. It dies to like half CPG, but if it's a special attack team, Gaz becomes a headache for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. This defense is trash, but his special defense is good. You got to go, Kip. Thanks for stopping by. I will definitely post the tier list on Discord because I saw somebody in the competitive questions chat asking for one. I see that like 3 or 4 times a week. Part of the reason why I decided to make it. But so yeah, I'll definitely post it. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Yeah, Oshiara super solid. It can run Blizzard to. It's a low priority move, but at least it's wind and can utilize the special attack buffs to hit toxics instead of getting walled by them. Otherwise, Sharp Rain super strong. Priority with Water Blade is nice. Red Moon, hello. Yowler. Yowler, I think is the best mental in the best neutral in the game, right? Let me just. Yeah, basically. It's not like Yowler's crazy good. I think it's in a lot better of a spot than it's been in the past. But Hibernate is super strong still because of Cold Blooded. Winter's Call, if you can create a situation where Yowler can actually click the move, then that's also a really big advantage. Because you can freeze your opponents for 1, possibly 2 if they're slow turns, and get +3 attack. And if you have enough defensive boosts or health by the time you get Winter's Call off, you can just completely win end games. Not sold on Yowler being A. No one plays Yowler like Plat. I mean, I'm not sold on it being A either. It's definitely manageable. It's not that Yowler itself is bad, it's that the supports that Yowler needs aren't good enough. If there's a Shween, like, you basically have to ban a Shween or a Yowler on a team. Otherwise, it can create a situation where you just lose because Shween gets 1 Court Shield off on the Yowler, and then from there, you can't deal enough damage to kill the Yowler in time. And it can get its holds off, and Winter's Call goes off, and then the game ends. And yet, it's also, yeah, I'm conflicted. I'll leave it in B. I agree with you guys. I don't think it's quite A tier. I'd say it's a high B tier, maybe a low A. Just because it requires support to really get value. You don't want to have to run Toughen on it. I don't even think there's a good move slot for it. You'd have to drop one of your attack slots, and you don't want to do that. And that's Yowler's only defensive scaling move. Pookie S, best tier list, GG easy. Exactly. I hope most people understand that's a joke. I think I'm going to leave it there. I feel like most people get the idea with my profile picture. But I really don't want new players to get confused. So, I don't know. I've seen +3 attack Yowler attacks, and it wasn't as impressive as you would have expected. It's not really impressive, though, but if you can deal half something's health, if you can do enough damage to kill something with a Savage plus a clinch, that's enough damage, in my opinion. So, Gario, I think it's just a B tier, just a solid B tier. Autotomy is a really strong ability. It dies to a tickle from. I mean, you can actually calc Gario pretty reasonably to live at 1 nature attack. Gario's offensive typing's pretty good. Defensively, it's not too bad besides the nature weakness. It's got good stabs on both sides. You kind of have to run Gravel Bag with it, but Clay Ball is an option now. I mean, Gyara's pretty simple. It's just avoids one free attack, deals solid damage. Scared of natures. People play Gyarados on not max HP, max attack. I mean, sometimes, I mean, if you just invest a little bit of special defense, since with the HP you can live a plague. Like if I just, from Volphy at least, I mean, you don't want to do it in front of a Lawali with Botanist. That would be brutal. Yeah, it's just like, it's 24 special defense invest. That's nothing. Like you can easily do that. And Volphy's like the most common time. Like, and people are gonna leave their Volphys in. Like in return, like a Cold Geyser usually does like half. I guess it depends on how much offensive invest or defensive invest the Volphy has. But if it's got 0, I guess it does have. I don't know. That's not common though. But like, yeah, Gyarados is really solid. Soil Steam's such a strong attack. Cold Geyser's like the best physical water move turn 1, so it's got access to both. Broccolum. I love Broccolum. Camouflage is such a strong ability. It got Marathonist now, but I don't think that ability is going to see use much at all. It's not that great. But Broccolum itself, crazy good offensive typing. Its defensive typing is kind of mediocre, but it practically counters all physical attackers because of Camouflage, so insane pressure. It requires your opponent to think every single time they want you to click a physical move, because you could just swap Broccolum into Eat It, get free evasion, and then get holds off. It has Inner Spirits to deal insane damage, Resin Trap for a really solid nature option, also Soul Shout and Plague for turn 1s. You always want to run like Sensei Robe for damage too. I mean, if you can make Marathonist work, Millie, go for it. I have not had success. I tried it once and it felt awful. Next is Schween. Yep, that's our third S tier in this patch. Yeah, so Schween got Crystal Deluge this patch. Did it also get some stat buffs? I don't remember. Yeah, it got stat buffs too. Like it got Sacrifice removed. Nobody cares. It lost Relax. But getting Deluge was a huge buff. Because what Schween basically wants to create free turns so it can buff its ally. And Crystal Deluge allows that now. It's already got really high base speed, really high base stamina, so you can invest the whole thing in bulk practically. Outspeed almost everything with a Synergy Deluge, put it to sleep, and then just get like 2 or 3 free buffs off before it dies. You can't kill the thing it's buffing because it's being buffed, and you can't kill Schween because it's super defensively invested. It's such an offensive threat, and it's also one of the best pairs for Adoro because it's got double synergy with Water Cannon for Toxic Ticks and Crystal Deluge for Sleep. So definitely S tier here. Sea Deluge is also just insane bulk. Got 232 speed and just click Deluge. No 2 prior move hits you anymore. Exactly. Yep. Amphitier's not even common. Like, so you wouldn't even, and even if it is, you're gonna see it using Plague. So you wouldn't even need to hit 232. You could hit 221 instead. Just save a few more TVs. Nesla. I think some people might disagree with me here, but I think Nesla's A tier. I think Nesla is. I think it's basically Nesla and Garunder are like the best electrics in the game. I think Nesla's got a little bit of an edge over Garunder, but I think both of them are really insane. Nesla's got Aquatic Whirlwind, Water Blade for constant water priority. It's got T-Strike for solid electric damage, and immunity to electric with electric synthesize. Offers speed control with Tesla or Electric Storm for spread damage, Spark, Bright Beam. It's got a lot of options for its flex slot. It counters a lot of really good Tems, like Oshiara, Hedgen. Beats Naga, hits Platymus, hits Cycrox too. I just think it's very strong. Its offensive type is super good, and now that it's had a few patches of buffs under its belt, I don't think anything changed this patch, but I think it's just overall a very solid Tem, super splashable on teams. Like if you're just looking for an extra water or electric to put on a team, I would at least try and see if Nesla fits, because it's super threatening. Basically does everything a water or electric would want to do. Or Valier, D tier. Valiar's best use is as a support, just creating, or like a control support to create turns for your Tems to do whatever they want. Really good for Digi-Threat synergy. It has Bamboozle and Hypno to create that space, but it lost. Or Bamboozle was now on a hold. It also lost Black Hole, which was a really nice support move for it because you could side Black Hole to remove Doom. It was pretty niche that you'd want to do that, but it was on slower, stallier teams that you would actually want to do that, and so it would be a nice combo. Also, you could use Black Hole on a target with Camo or Bait procced to remove the immunity status, and then apply the Doom from Digi-Threat afterwards. Both are low prio, so the Black Hole would go first, and then the Digi-Threat. That was something I used a lot last patch with my Evasion Doom team. But nowadays, it also got Intimidation removed, which was a nice niche option for stamina control with Exhaust, and then another evasion option for itself. So it is a bit sad it lost that. But it has Ultrasound still, I guess. Nightmare Feed, they gave it in return to differentiate it from Sandbee, right? Because Sandbee totally doesn't have Nightmare Feed. It does. It does. It does. I don't know why they did that, but yeah. So Valiar is unfortunately in a bad spot. Oh, they gave it Composure too, but Composure's just not a good move. Too situational, far too situational. We got Lowaddle. I think that's basically just gonna sit in C tier. Lowaddle's not bad. It has a few. Now it basically can use both sets. It can use a Voodoo set that tries to create space to use blue screen and just slow its opponents with roots, and that's really interesting. But in its other set for Seppuku, it's basically just a sacrifice bot, but it can also get penance, I guess. So it's got like penance and sacrifice, so it's got really nice support moves for either set. I really like Lowaddle, but it's just bad. It's not bad. It's just niche. It basically just wants to sacrifice and get Doom off. Just buff with penance, and maybe blue screen if your opponent's not expecting it. Valiar feels like E tier at this rate. Yeah, Valiar's really. I think running a raid boss Stamby with effective denial and Nightmare Feed might be kind of fun. But if you think your opponent's not going to swap from the Hypnosis, you're wrong. If it had a way to 3-turn trap, so you could trap Bamboozle Nightmare Feed and then cycle that, maybe it would work. But Handcuffs is only two turns of trap, and it doesn't have like Petrify or Kesugatame, so yeah. Hypno Bamboozle spam beat you. Yeah, I mean, it still can do that. It's just not nearly as effective at doing so. Plus, not being able to control anything on turn 1, it sucks. It used to be one of the best turn 1 enablers. Like if you pair a Valiar and a Kapire together, the Kapire can get a heat up off because you can get Bamboozle to the Kapire. But that's not possible anymore. Didn't play it well. It was annoying to deal with. Yeah, that can happen. Bamboozle on holes make it mind games more obvious. You know she can't do it again after the first pop. Yeah. I mean, but every single turn was a mind game before. Like, people actually had to think before clicking a green circle. How could they? You're really glad they nerfed Bamboozle? Well, then just... That's just because you play slow teams. That's why all the fast teams complain about Naga. And I'm sure you probably don't have any problems with Naga. But anyways, Calibus... It used to be another Tem that used to use Toxic Skin, but Toxic Skin got removed from it and replaced with Toxic Farewell, which I have not seen once. It's basically every Calibus has gone back to Mucus, because it's pretty good value. Getting electric damage reduced, which is one of its main weaknesses. And also, like, toxic damage takes neutrally from. I think it's C tier, just because most of the time if you're going to be using a bulky Toxic Strangle user, you're just going to use Cycrox because you can get the Neurotoxins Doom off. Calibus in general is really ignorable. It doesn't have a lot of board pressure. It can use Toxic Ticks to deal like 25% true damage plus whatever damage the actual Toxic does. But besides fighting like Turoks and Tolkiens by baiting them to stay in and fight it, it doesn't do much else. The Naga surviving at 1 HP causing you your first loss, but no, you usually don't care about Naga. The fast one can actually be fine in the stall. Oh, you mean like Water Custodians are fine? Like, oh yeah, I mean, on slow teams I don't care about the Seedora. And yeah, even Water Custodian's a little underwhelming because it has the Seedora's keeping Naga just as a whole in check. Adoro's going to be another S tier. Super bulky, like highest special defense in the game. You can just throw like 700 plus defensive TVs in this Tem and it gets so much value because every time somebody attacks it, like the first time a turn, it gets Toxic Skin value. It can make you deal less damage every other turn because of Denigrate. It's got solid turn 1 option with Beta Burst, spread damage with well, it's got V-Gust for an option, and spread damage if it's got synergy. Basically, this trio together just it's so strong. Because Doro's slow, can get value from Decidora. Shwing can get Deluge synergy with both of them. And Doro gets V-Gust synergy with both. So it's just a menace, these three together. So it's like maybe individually they're not as strong. I still think Shween and I guess each of them are strong individually. But it's also worse that all three of them have synergy with each other. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Alright, again, the 2Y evolutions. We're almost done. Anyone who's stuck with me, thank you. I'm sure most people have just skipped through or just seen what I've said to say about specific Tems. 2Kai. I don't think 2Kai is D tier. I don't. I think it's C tier. Like Spreader's still really strong. Aqua Bullets, Wind Burst, Tornado, Sharp Rain. Does a lot of damage. It's still a bit squishy and not overly fast. Kind of a middling speed tier. But on the right sort of team, I think it can be a threat. It can't be ignored. It's just got a bad type chart defensively. 2Kai smacking Turok and Tolkien pretty huge. That's a good point as well, yeah. Doppel can like one shot. Tolkien. Tolkien's not S tier, but it's A tier. It's just I feel like Tolkien's always A tier. It's too consistent. Two good traits. Pyro being typically picked. It's got the same moveset every time. Priority with both of its stabs, strongest turn 1 option for both of its stabs, strongest turn 2 wind move, strongest turn 3 fire move. It's Tolkien. Even the new players on ladder have probably run into it like every other game they've played, if not more often. I think I'm actually going to place Tuvine in A tier as well, though. It's not because of the H-slap buff. Tuvine is really good against toxics, and we've seen how many of them are in the meta. Also, completely walls Adoro besides like Inner Spirit, which some Adoros do run, and I didn't even mention. It's got the highest defense stat in the game. Priority with Turbine. Really good turn 1 stabs within Feather Gatling and Crystal Bloom Gatling. The option of either Nox Bomb for coverage or H-Slap for like double Tuvine shenanigans just to lower defense. It can eat like 2 super effective physical attacks. Like it can eat 2 lava waves from a Hazrat and still live. Yeah, exactly. The biggest counter to Tuvine is Tolkien here. But if you ban out a Tolkien, like Tuvine can run through a team really bad. It's just really strong. Way too bulky, super high damage. I love the thing, but it's probably a bit too strong. Turok. Honestly, I think Turok's B tier now. I think it's high B tier, possibly low A tier, but I'm going to put it in B. Turok is still super consistent, very good typing defensively, offensively, crazy good HP pool, solid defense stat, attack stat, really good options and turn 1 and turn 2, super good trait with tactical strike. The reason I'm placing it a little lower is because there were like 3 nerfs targeted right at Turok last patch, and they did have an effect. Stoneball Synergy is now digital. Not a Tem you want to have next, or not a type you want to have next to an Earth. So you're not really getting Stoneball Synergy ever. Rockfall only inflicts 1 turn of burn now, so you can't get a Rockfall on a swap and still be able to stay in. And then also Tactical Strike got a slight damage nerf. So Turok is still really solid, pretty splashable, arguably A tier. But I'm placing it in B just because it's just worse than it used to be, honestly. It's pretty slow. So you're going to get outsped and have to take hits. Doesn't like a lot of the high Tems. I mean, it beats all the toxics because it resists toxic moves and hits back with wind. But I mean, stuff like Oshiara, Platamus, Nesla deal with it pretty well. Momo seems low. I mean, Momo's just in B tier. I don't think Momo's in A tier. If Momo was an A tier, we'd see more of it. Momo is like S tier against slower teams, and against faster teams, it's more like C tier, I think. So I think I just place it in the middle. Yeah, like Momo, like turn 1 it can't do anything. So if you're facing a faster team that can deal damage, then it'll have to take at least 1 hit, more like 2, before it even gets an attack off. And then if it takes another 1 or 2, it'll probably just die and won't even get its hit off. Oh yeah, Momo getting screwed by Denigrate hurts too. Yeah, that's another reason. 2 solid mentals in the meta always hurts neutrals. 2-wire. I mean, 2-wire is actually really good. It's just niche. It's not splashable. You're only gonna want to run Turok or 2. Okay, I'm gonna get these names mixed up. 2-wire. You're only gonna use 2-wire if you have a really bad type chart, or if you're doing a strategy with like Faraday Cage to push off the common factor and get type advantage. But I mean, it's got like Turbo Attack, which was buffed a few patches ago, which is nice. It has reset, so you can kind of do some shenanigans. But it's got a really good moveset with Feather Gatling, Turbine, Faraday Cage, and turbo attack, you probably don't want to swap it out or swap any of those moves. Overall, it's like stat spread sucks too. It's just that it's got a really strong and useful ability on the right time, on the right team. Doro gets helped by Adoro being really strong and a good partner. That's fair, but that's more like Adoro being strong, and Two-Wire just happens to be good with it. But I suppose in the meta, it could arguably be like B tier. I just think, in general, it's C tier. It's just that combo makes it a bit higher. Lost the 2 eyes. We got Tutsu. I think Tutsu's solid, but it's also kind of niche. Tag team gives really good value, but the Tems that want to use or take advantage of tag team aren't super great in the meta. If you look in the top tier, we have like Mashuk and Tuvine in A, nothing in S. So like the 2-2-2 pairing is super strong. I took advantage of that during the midseason invitational, but most of the time one or the other gets banned and it's not nearly as good. Yep, exactly. It gets banned in remotely decent matchups. Like if people know that tag team's gonna get so much value or Tutsu has a good type chart, it just gets banned. And even then, like it doesn't have a lot of great matchups. Because it's weak to electric, which is fairly common. You got like Nessa, Scara, Gazuma, which are all really common. Garunder. It's another mental weak. It's faster than Adoro when it's not under DA, but it can only do like half of Adoro's health, if even. So it takes a toxic tick plus beta burst. And yeah, it's rough. A good Tem, not splashable, not overly great. Kinu. Man, we're filling out the C tier pretty well here. Kinu's never really recovered after losing Stonewall. It had a little bit of a comeback with Benefactor. I think that was the patch afterwards, after Stonewall got. Oh shoot! Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Kinu did get Denigrate. Yep. And stall teams really like having mentals for either Denigrate synergy. Also, like Kinu's a good heal support with Lifeful Sap Revitalize. Now it can actually debuff with Denigrate, and that was something I completely forgot about. But it is really actually a good buff. Benefactor is like 8% heal or whatever now, which isn't that great, but Protector's still decent. It's just a free buff on something. Sometimes that's little damage boost or a defense boost can be enough to give a Tem the edge it needs to survive. Alright, next. Volcrane, one of the biggest known slingshot abusers. It got nerfed multiple patches because of slingshot being too strong on it. And now slingshot doesn't exist and Volcrane didn't get anything in return. I'm sure it'll get fixed soon, but for the time being, Volcrane's got nothing. Except a bad defensive type chart. I mean, technically Vigorous could still do some shenanigans. Roar buff. Yeah, I kind of want to try a Roar Extinction Volcrane. But with that type chart, it's just rough. I don't think it's going to be great. Is this the patch Pig got Debris Typhoon? I already forgot. I mean, let's go Tyrannac then for Roar Extinction. And why not have both? Extinction Voulor, so you don't need Talisman. Yeah, I mean, there's some shenanigans you can do. Pig is like the second best defensive buffer in the game, besides Schween. It's got Stonewall, Divine Inspiration. Bamboozle was kind of a big hit to it. That was one of its options it used, but it also has turbo support. You think pigs C? I feel like it's almost essential on raid boss teams. I guess I didn't even run it on mine, so I guess that's kind of like an attest to how bad it is. Uh, I mean, the offensive stat with like Friendship Pig is just kind of a meme. I mean, you can catch people off guard with like an Oshidashi or something, but it's not like good. It's like a best of one. Doesn't have a high enough attack stat. I mean, I'd say Pig is a high C, low B. The Bamboozle nerf did hit it. Debris Typhoon doesn't do a whole lot for it besides give it a stamina efficient way to deal damage, so it's not required to bring either Turbine or Wind Burst. It's still going to be played almost always on stall teams just as a defensive buff spammer. Fainted Curse still gives more value than Friendship. I don't think Acronox is quite A tier, but I think it's a high B tier. It's just got such a good typing. It also, I guess after the Slingshot nerf, it's probably just a flat B tier. Because it can't scale speed. But I mean, it's a Toxin Shower user. It's pretty bulky. Sting is a really strong move. Venom Spread shenanigans are always possible. Soil Steams is like the best possible Earth Stab it could have. There's really no downsides to Acronox. It's just a really solid Tem all around. I guess the only thing with Acronox is that it gets outclassed by other toxic types that offer more to a team than just straight up damage. I really shouldn't even put the Koishas on here, or the Chromions for that matter. I think, yeah, if there's the Chromion. Like the Water Koish not viable. Neutral Koish shenanigans with harmful lick. I think it's like one of the strongest hitting like turn 1 moves if you really want to do it, but don't. Wind Koish might see some use now that Synergy Ice Cubes applies cold, but I don't think that'll be common at all. Earth Koish, just shenanigans. Fire Koish is like speedy Lava Wave offensive teams, but Nature Koish does it better. Nature Koish is the best Koish for Water Cutting Lily, Synergy, offensive hyper aggro teams. Electric Koish probably comes in a very close second, being a good pair for electric or Digi aggro teams, giving synergy to microwaves, having Electro Punch for synergy itself. Mental Koish. It's got Matter Teleport. It's great for killing Broccolims in the melee shrine. It's one of the few times that can resist digital. Digicoish, I don't think Digicoish is that bad. Don't think it was ever that great. I mean, before Digicoish was used as a redirection device bot to resist digital hits, but nowadays it's more like it's used as a support to try and get Zen Meditation off and be a Misogi bot. But even that's super hard to pull off, and it's not worth a slot on a team to run. But offensively, it's actually really threatening, and it's one of the best Iridescence Koish. I think it's actually the best Iridescence Koish typing. So, I mean, it could see some use. Melee Koish, I tried using it. It's fun for memes, but it's bad. Crystal Koish, it's worse than Water Koish somehow, so oof. We'll see a Koish Chromion rework next patch. They already said they're going to. Eerie Neutral Koish. I don't think Neutral Koish needs the Eerie though. I think I actually like it better as a Synergy Master so that it can enable like Quetzal and Sparkling Bullet users. digital equations. What digital synergies include? Like what? Stoneball and Electro Punch. I just don't think it's that great synergy master, but it gets a lot of value from Eerie. Toxic Quaish is like it's fighting for or fighting with Platimus and Calibus for a spot, so you're always going to want to run Platimus or Calibus instead. Hope they have something in mind that gets them away from this unhealthy design thing they have. We can only hope. Okay, so arguably Volphy is not S tier. Arguably, it's not. Like it's a really solid 10, but there's nothing that it does exceptionally that puts it into S tier. It's probably just A. I want to put it in S just because of how often it's used, its defensive typing, and its consistency. But I think it's just A tier, because if I go by that rule, then Tolkien would also be S tier. It's a very high A tier, but it's not like Volphy's overpowered. It's just better than the other options, I suppose. Like, if Lawali hadn't get hit with those nerfs that it did, I think it would still be competing with Volphy for, like, the offensive nature slot. And after, like, Turok got nerfed, so that's why it's a bit lower than, and Volphy is just kind of the better Earth nowadays. Plus, its defensive typing is so good. Like, its stats are below average. It's got double prio stab, which puts it, I don't know, that's why it's in A tier. I just don't think it's S tier. Like, if you compare Volphy to these three here, Volphy just isn't as good. Being weak only to melee. Yeah, it's got like an insane defensive type chart. That's why its stats suck. It could arguably be S, but I think I'm going to put it in A. If you, yeah, it's my tier list. I can put it wherever I want. Biggest strengths can't be hit by Denigrate. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even touch on Team Elusive. Team Elusive is a super strong ability. With all the spread move buffs, it gets more value nowadays than it used to. I don't think Waspian's D tier anymore. I think it's still C tier though. SA or the short version. I mean, you can just tell me what tier you think it is. I'll tell you why I think it's in C tier. Toxic Slime was interesting for it to get. I don't think it runs it. Plasma Beam was nice, but I don't think it's great. Like most of the time, Waspine doesn't particularly want to attack. It's kind of like fighting with Moments for the same exact slot. It's just that Momus does a better job of being able to buff itself with block compared to like Shy Shield here. Digi mashup went from useless to really good. Like if you're running speed on Waspine, you can give value with Crystal Deluge, which is interesting. And now it has like buffed blue screen, which is kind of cool. Yes, Millie. I know that the way you play Waspine with like high, like it's not like high special attack invest, but don't you run like just over 300 or something? Like most people aren't going to be doing that. I think in general, and for everyone playing Waspine who's not you, that Waspine is C tier. I it's a cool town. I think it's getting there, but I don't think it's there yet. You're usually the best Waspine player. I guess. Well, I mean, like Lulu is now all of a sudden the best Ragnet player. So should we put Ragnan in S tier because he because he won a tournament with it? It's just I'm the best Pookie player. I'm probably the only Pookie player. That's why it's an S tier. Moments, which is everything that Waspine wants to be but better. I think it's A tier. It was always it's got one of the best defensive typings in the game. Its offensive, like its special attack stat is trash. It's awful. It's like 56 or something. Uh, but it has binary flood and resin trap as offensive options. Yeah, 56. And it has revitalize for healing. Refurbished as an insane ability. Like that is one of the best traits in the game, in my opinion. Just stay on the field for 3 turns, heal half your health back by swapping out. Put Wasp being your experience into low B tier, except high C tier is nowhere near D tier. I agree. It is not near D tier. You could argue for high C tier. I think it's mid C tier. It's not D tier though. Yeah, it's C for sure. But Moments is great. Moments is one of the best Tems to run next to Gazuma. I saw the combo a lot last patch. I haven't seen it much this patch. But essentially, you put Moments next to Gazuma, and you have Gazuma Sparks the Moments. Sparks isn't a great move. It's only +1 special attack. But it makes people want to attack the Tem that got Sparks so that it can't continue to get value. But the thing is, you don't want to attack Moments because it's going to get refurbished and be able to heal all the damage you deal to it off after a few turns, or at least a lot of it. So it kind of creates this issue where you want to attack Moments, but at the same time you don't. So unless you can kill Moments before refurbished procs, it creates a huge threat on the field. And even without a Gazuma, being able to win so many late games, and now with the building blocks change, it's able to threaten a lot of late games. Plasma Beam gives really good value. Can use Binary Flood. Resin Trap's a strong move. I suppose the biggest problem is that against a lot of these other A-tier Tems, it just doesn't compare. But it's slow enough to kill Naga, and it hits all 3 of these super effective, so it's at least a threat. Maybe not the best threat around, but it's. I think Moments is A tier. I just do. Azrat. Azrat got. I think the only thing it got was actually Venomous Claws becoming priority, which was, I think, designed to be for Saipat, funny enough, not the Hazrat itself. You'd put Hazrat in A. Toxic Farewell is a crazy good ability, because even if you kill it, it gets like 50% true damage or something. Just about. And Contagious also like threatens swaps. Hazrat has a crazy good offensive typing. Problem is that most of the time it wants to be next to a water, and that's not going to always be an option. Arguably it could be A, but Hazrat's bulk is very low. It takes significant defensive investment to even live like a Feather Gatling, and living a Tornado is even worse. I don't even know if it can live most tornadoes because its special defense is lower. Let's just use Tolkien as an example. And if Hazrat could take a hit, like reasonably, then I think it would be worth it. It would be a better Tem. But we're looking at like 400 HP invest to live a Tornado from Tolkien with max special attack, which means you have to either sacrifice on stamina, speed, or attack. I know a lot of the people in the tournament who were running Hazrat sacrificed the speed and just ran attack, and were still able to be an offensive threat, but then you lose like fast toxin showers, the main gain of lava wave priority. Why did my screen get bigger? Bad screen. What is going on? Also kind of biased because Hazard's insane against stall. Yeah, I mean, what's one of the best things Hazard has going for it, um, which is it has heat up. I'm trying to get my screen back in place. It all got all wonky. So yeah, it's definitely a stall breaker. I just Hazard's in a good spot now. I think it's a good town, but I don't think it's crazy. Like it gets completely walled by earth types. Both of its stabs get resisted by it, and it just dies to stuff like tornado priority. Like I said, it's got a fairly good defensive type chart, and there's not a whole lot of like earth priority. There's sludge gift now, but a sludge gift's not going to one shot it. Like it'll die to like a stone ball or a dust vortex. I'd say it's just a high B tier, low A tier. Minotaur. Minotaur hasn't been great the last couple metas. It got nerfed consecutively a lot. Paizo Electric Blow going up to 39 stamina, like highest stamina cost in the game, really hurt it pretty bad. Hasty Lunge took it out of the game last patch. Now the Hasty Lunge damage is back, but it's still not really something you want to run if you don't have to. And Sparkling Bullet's just kind of mediocre. It's just Minotaur is mid. It's just so mediocre. I kind of want to put it in the C tier. Like not having turn 1 mental damage because Black Hole's its only physical mental move sucks. It gets outclassed from other electrics. It gets outclassed from other mentals, and you can't really utilize the rusher boost as well as it used to. I'd say the best thing that Minotaur does nowadays is threaten Digi aggro teams, and you run hacked microchip. I saw somebody here, or somebody mentioned that combo before, and it sounded really interesting. But I think that's about the only niche that Minotaur really has right now. It's just, I just don't think it does much else. It's in a really rough spot. It's not that rough. It's just like it's not what it used to be. It's C tier is I think going to be a good fit for it. I think Ruminant should be changed a bit more. I think it should also give HP back, and Minotaur should be changed to be a raid boss option. I think that would be cool. So it has like an offensive set and a defensive set, but it would need some sort of way to buff its defenses. Or maybe they should give Minotaur paralyzing poison. So it has tenderness and paralyzing poison, and it can be a debuff raid boss instead of a buffing one. That would be cool. Yeah, doesn't help that 2 of the top tiers destroy it, Naga and Shmeen. Shmeen because crystal type, and Naga because flipping the speed chart. Transient Echo Minnow, I don't think that's a good idea. But Transient Echo Moala. Moala I think is always going to be B tier just because of Hypnotist. It's not a crazy good ability. But it enables quite a few Tems. Zen Meditation was cool on it, but now it's not nearly as good. But I think it's still usually ran. Like with Transient Echo, you can still get it off reasonably quick. And with Hypnotist passing a turn naturally anyways, it's good. But I mean, Moala is basically just a Hypnotist bot. That's basically all it does. It's just that it has a really good offensive typing. It has perfect coverage because mental hits everything except crystal, and then melee hits crystal. It has priority with Transient Echo, which is nice. And Nito's a nice, and Haito, I guess, are both good support options as well. It's just kind of like it's like an offensive support, which is a cool little niche it's got. But most of the time, people just run it for Hypnotist. Even at full special attack, Minnow's got a really low special attack. I think Mintle has one of the lowest in the game. Ah, we're getting down there. We are almost done. I mean, I could place like Venks, because Venks is like the one pre-evolution that has a use. I think both Venks and Venmet are just kind of like C tier. I'm going to talk about all three of these at once, just because they're very similar. Venks super tanky. It's a neutral. Yowler does everything Venks wants to do, but better right now. Venks is slow. It's got Ninja though to make up for that. It's got Strangle, I guess, which is decent. It saw a use for a little while on the blue screen teams to pass turns, but it's not great. Venmet, it's bad defensively. It's got Aggressor for offensive options, which is cool. It's one of the few times that has Kesugatame left. I was running it as a support earlier, but it's not good. Don't do that. I think that Melee is just kind of a type that's not great in this meta. Because of two of the top tiers being Mentals. So I just don't think a Tem like Venmet can do a whole lot. And Vental, one of the two Tems remaining that has Time Split, horrible type chart. And it's always just been kind of low tier. Like Unseen Res Badge Spiritual boosted does a lot of damage, but it doesn't one-shot anything. And it's very frail, so it's always going to take a hit because it can't one-shot anything. And that's where the issue comes in. Is that it doesn't deal enough damage to kill something, so it always takes a hit afterwards. Both time split users in D tier. I know, it's crazy. Chimerian. I really like Chimerian. I would almost argue that it's an A tier, actually. Maybe B tier. I think it's a low A tier, high B tier, though. It's like Hostele's very strong. It's really good against Adoro, threatens Naga and Shuin. So it's basically just it's really good against the trio up here, which is super valuable. Hits Oshiara and like some of the other stuff up here as well. Garunder. Hits Volfi with Frond Whips. It getting priority with what was the Glassblade. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Getting priority with Glassblade is super good. Allows it to finish stuff off without having to use Rush. Yeah, it's a really solid Tem. Like, Frond Whip being low prio and on a hold kind of sucks because it doesn't have access to one of its stab moves until turn 2. You can run Sharp Leaf, but Sharp Leaf is pretty weak. Overall, I think it's really solid, super good in this meta. Arachnite. Played Strange Vest, Arcane Wrap, Vental before release. Defensive kills were decent, offense wins were lacking. Wondering if you could make something happen with Time Split now. Maybe. I haven't tried anything like that. So Arachnite, I don't think I've seen one this patch yet. It's not a bad Tem. It's not like D tier bad. It's very flexible, has a whole bunch of options. The Digiprotection set is like even worse than it was. It was already hardly used Digiprotect. But now that Redirection Device is gone, I think they should just rework Digiprotect to be like Electric Custodian for digitals. And make it actually redirect digital moves. That way, like, you can still run Arachnite as a counter to Digi-aggro teams, and people just ban the Arachnite. I mean, it sounds reasonable enough to me. Like, the problem with Redirection Device is you didn't know what it was on. But now you could know that it would be on Arachnite, because that's its trait, and then you just ban it out. But Adaptive is a pretty solid ability. Getting +2 special attack is really nice, but if you don't get attacked for it to proc, then you either have to attack it yourself or you run out of stamina. and then they attack you and then they kill you. Your opponent can easily play around adaptive, so because it's not something you can freely activate yourself unless you're swapping in to take damage first. I can see there's sparks. Sorry, I probably should have thought more before I spoke up. Arachnite's a good pair for Gazuma because fast charge, and then you can spark to give your own Arachnite electric typing and proc adaptive. Get +3 special attack. It's a very strong combo, but most people are aware of it, and so they'll ban either the Gazuma or the Arachnite, and then kind of Arachnite alone is not nearly as good. It's basically a slot on Digi aggro teams, but most other Digis fit the slot better. So Arachnite kind of gets outclassed in everything it wants to do. It's very interesting as kind of like a special bruiser, though. If you do want to swap it in to take a hit to proc adaptive, and then just deal some +2 crazy type coverage damage to whatever you want. I feel like Arachnite's Digicounter got hit the hardest by the harmful synergy change. Kind of the last nail in the coffin for that counter tech. You know, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Because every Digi is going to be next to an electric, and the electric still hit Arachnite super hard. Alright, Munko. Munko's not good enough to be A tier, but it's very good. It'll be B tier. Soul Shout plus Sensei Robe plus Shaolin damage crazy high. Like a Shaolin is a really good trait. It's special attack damage boost on everything Munko clicks. So that's Prio with hook. Problem is that Munko's a bit slow, but you can build it bulkier so it can live any one hit that's not Digi, basically. Kind of got a rough defensive type chart. Very rough defensive type chart, actually. It's just... But offensively, it's crazy good. Token buff was great for it, too. And most people still run Hook, just because Hook deals more damage and you don't need the Isolate. It was kind of a nice buff, but... Most of the time, Munkos are going to run Soul Shout, Harmful Microwaves, Plasma Beam, and Dim Mak. Because Plasma Beam offers so much utility, to not run it is a bit questionable in my opinion. Because if you're facing down like a Gario that has Autotomy broken, you could Plasma Beam it to live the first Cold Geyser, and that would deal enough damage to it so that you can finish it off with a Soul Shout the next turn. Because one Soul Shout alone wouldn't kill. Get it 2 times more often with Token. I guess that's true. But if you just have a Harmful Microwave synergy, you can get the priority then anyways. You don't have a way to get priority with melee naturally, besides Hook. Three left. You got Anatan. I love Anatan. I'd love to place it higher tier, but I cannot do that just because of the... Man, really... Looking at this makes me want to place it in B tier just because the only real Earth type is Volphy. But hardly anyone only runs one Earth type on a team. Almost everyone runs at least 2. I mean, it's usually going to be Turok as the other one. Sometimes Acronox. Or Gario as well. Because of that, Anatan's got to be C. If any meta that Earth types aren't super common, Anatan can really shine. Scale easy with Heat Up. Even though it's got a low base attack, it can just get the Heat Up off, and all of a sudden it gets insane value. Nutbar plus Self-Care gives really crazy healing for anything that doesn't hit it super effective. Run to your Ouroboros to clicks Misogi. You know, well, I mean, a Crystal Bite plus a Mineral Hail still does insane damage even without a Heat Up to an Adoro, just because super effective, strong attacks. I'd be more afraid of taking over half my health from an Inner Spirit. I love Anatan. I think it's solid, but it requires at least adequate counters to Earth types, and preferably other teams that aren't weak to Earth on the team. Tyranak, It's fallen from S tier, from A tier. I think it's in B tier now. Uh, I think it's kind of been in B tier since the turn counter for its traits got turned down to 3 instead of 5. It's still really strong offensively. Does tons of damage once it gets its hold off, and it's super tanky. But it's more like a disruptor, and now it does its disruptor job less effectively than it used to. And plus, if you look at the A tier, all the toxics in it, they all beat on Tyrannax so hard. Even Adoro. So for that reason, Tyrannax B, it might rise back up in a less toxic infested meta. But for right now, that's where it's gonna sit. Tyrannax has so many good moves, it's insane. Yeah, yep, it does have lots of good moves. Especially after Extinction got changed. I don't know, I don't think the Extinction change was that great, honestly. But I haven't even seen New Extinction yet, so maybe. Ogon is the last one. I'm not really sure where to put it though. Maybe I should just put it in B just so it creates a new line and you can see the separator. Separator easy. Volgon's just a support. I mean, super conduct is nice. Being able to stare, beef up, strangle, Emperor outburst, super good. It's nothing crazy broken. It's a monotype with super low stamina. But I mean, like, exhaust is something that can't be prevented from camo or bait. Pairing Ampere Outburst with like Gorong or Mashuk, or even if your opponent doubles into the other slot and you get the Ampere free swap in, or Ampere when a Velfi's on the field, it's a very strong move. People are running Adrenaline Shot Strangle on the Volgon. You can Strangle Lock for like 3 or 4 turns or something crazy. Gonna go to bed, still be mad about the Waspine though. Well, thank you for stopping by. Have a good night. Yeah. Volgon's a solid support. Short Circuit's an option too. If you can still do the Strangle and Ampere shenanigans, but you won't be able to do beef up stare. But it's a pretty flexible support. So it's got willpower drain if you want to do stamina options. But that is going to be it. So this is going to be the final tier list. I know that there's definitely some picks and placements that people disagree with. I gave most of my justifications here in the video, so like everything could change tomorrow. The meta can adapt really quick. I think it'll kind of sit this way for at least a couple weeks until the next TemCS tournament, and people show some new crazy stuff. But MSI was a big influencer, and really showed kind of like where the meta's at. So I think all these picks are pretty solid for now. For anyone who tunes in right at the end, Pookie is a meme, okay? I love Pookie. But I'm just going to leave it there because he's my mascot. But no, he's not actually S tier. I think that's going to be all for me. This did take a while. I don't think this is going to be something I do real often. Probably just once per patch. I think that's good enough. It gives people an idea. Being able to show people an updated tier list, I think, will be really helpful. Yeah, I'm gonna upload it in the server afterwards. I just don't want to keep the stream going any longer than I have to. I am gonna see if there's anyone to raid though. I know East has been streaming pretty late at night, so I wonder if he's on right now. I'm not seeing him online. I don't actually see anyone playing comp. So unfortunately there will not be anyone to raid today. Thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you gained some valuable information with the tier list here. Yeah, I'm kind of spent. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow with another video of actually playing some comp. Don't know what I'm going to do yet, but we'll see. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.